Hello everyone, my name is Sachin Sharma. Welcome to the Jyotish project. This is the second episode, Jyotish as a psychoanalytic tool. In this episode, we will open a dialogue about why Jyotish must be used as a psychoanalytic and therapeutic method and not just a method for foreseeing the future, which is mostly misguided and a scam. There's a dire need to shift from the ongoing application of Jyotish as a method for foreseeing and manipulating the future and safeguarding from the many catastrophes that wait for all of our anxious selves through superstitious remedial measures to a method for the analysis of the self by understanding its structure and dynamics. So we want to make a shift from remedying the future through various superstitious means and magical means to a method for the analysis of the self by understanding its structure and its dynamics. So the purpose is to open a dialogue about the importance of the analysis of the self and its structure, which is a real remedy of the problem of being, and not just a superficial remedying of the future through superstitious and other magical means. Predictions predictate the perfectly programmed. Predictions can be done by assessing the past and the ongoing circumstances. So let's open this one up. Predictions predictate the perfectly programmed. So predictions would only work, certainty only works for those that are perfectly going according to a certain program. The program is that of what we studied in Jyotish, the metaphysical structure of reality. So if one is deeply unconscious and fully rooted in their past and its habituated ongoing manifestation, then one can predict the behavior and its outcomes. Ideally, we want to work with possibilities given the ongoing trends. How much of our sense of self is grounded in what has happened to us will also have a say in how our future will manifest. So we want to travel light and manage our grief case as well as we can. So there are indeed phases and cycles that can help us understand the psychophysical weather of a certain period in life. It can indeed be supremely beneficial to prognosticate the various possibilities of the future properly, but there's a fine line. And most of how this is dealt with is nonsense and scam. And most of us fall for these traps because we are fundamentally gullible. We don't, and people who have the knowledge misuse their knowledge. This must, when we especially gullible when we don't have knowledge. So awareness and having these kinds of dialogues, that's one of the purposes of the Jyotish project, so that when you're aware of what we are trying to do, what a Jyotishi can and cannot do, we wouldn't fall for these traps. So this much must also be clear to you by now if you have seen enough astrologers, that most of it does not work. Generally speaking, what one is asking when they want a prediction is either fortune telling, so where they want to hear that they are a fortunate person. They're hoping to have done something right in an unconscious past the benefits of which they can reap now. This is not the right way to use Jyotish or to live life. In general, we must deal with ourself, the self that seeks the wheel of fortune in our favor, the self that is given to greed, lust, egoity, and something else, other things. Once that is dealt with, our questions will change to how we approach Jyotisha will also change. So once when we change our aspirations, our value systems, and understand our own psychological biases that ask a certain kind of questions, when we change that, the questions itself would change. And it would also change how we approach Jyotisha, how we look at Jyotish and everything. So one must not seek prediction, but wrestle with fate, while having faith in something that transcends faith. What is inevitable must be grieved with grace. What is changeable must be changed with effort. What is fortunate must be accepted with gratitude. So here let's take 2 steps back and see what we are trying to do is we're trying to see that our ongoing understanding, ongoing approach to Jyotish is that we need to predict the future, and somehow if we do something differently in a magical superstitious way, the future would not be that way. So the locus of control is outside of oneself. So we'll have a certain attitude, for example, about a certain thing, and we wouldn't work on the attitude. It's that attitude that's predicting a certain future for us. It's a habit that is producing a certain future for us. What we instead do is, and these attitudes and habits are obviously related to how our astrology is, and we work with that through becoming conscious and using the right techniques and methods to fix those attitudes. What we do instead is we want to change things outside of ourselves while we remain unconscious of our own automations, of our own automatisms and habits. So we need a shift from foreseeing to healing the past and working with the present ongoing circumstances as consciously as possible. Right? So predictions predictate the perfectly programmed. So if you're perfectly programmed, the predictions can be predictated. They'll make sense. If your patterns are set in stone, then you'd be like, yes, this is the outcome of the way you are. We don't want that. We don't want to bow down to fate, to Kal. We want to make an effort. We want our soul to shine. We want to seek through knowledge, through illumination, through Jyoti, through grace, to be able to make changes as humbly and as much as we can, and the rest is up to the forces of nature, and what happens, happens. So we don't want to be deeply unconscious. We want to be deeply conscious, and we want to understand our trends, our past trends, our proclivities, where we come from. We want to see our ongoing circumstances, and depending on that, those patterns, we want to work with those as consciously as possible, as much as we can see, moment to moment, and that would dictate a certain few possibilities. Everything is not possible as to like, oh, there are infinite possibilities. No, given our certain structure, it will narrow down to a few timelines, let's say. And depending on how much of our own will of the sun we can exert, we can shift those timelines. We can move within those possibilities. So understanding certain phases and cycles that will happen in the future helps, but who will that happen to? To whom that is happening? That self, that is the one experiencing, the consciousness itself, that is what will experience those future weathers and stuff. So we want to work with that. That's where we want to keep our attention. So that's the topic of the video, is Jyotish as a psychoanalytic tool. That is a tool to assess, to analyze the psyche. They want to use Jyotish for that, rather than just a tool for predictions and just a tool for all kinds of superstitious stuff that we've seen so far. So generally speaking, as we come back to this presentation again, this slide again, what one is asking when they want a prediction is that I hope that I've done something fortunate. Please tell me I've done something fortunate in the past, that the benefits the time has come for me to reap the benefits of those things. So I don't want to live out of, I'm just praying, I'm just hoping that there's something. It's good, like we need those moments, we need those things, but we must deal with ourself. It is this self that is seeking that wheel of fortune to turn in our favor. So which it is given to different kinds of desires because of certain ideas. So there's an old saying that in the same village, one person was praying for rain and the other for heat of the sun, for sunlight, because one was a corn farmer and the other was a rice farmer. Right, so the rice farmer is praying for more rains in the same province, and another was hoping for scorching heat of the sun so that the corn can ripe, right? So one person's desire, one person's understanding is imbued by their proclivity, what they see as fit for their needs. So when we change this kind of attitude and we start working on ourselves, our questions will also change, and how we approach Jyotish will also change. So the applications and implications of Jyotish will shift when the wielder of this tool shifts their perspective. So we must not seek prediction but wrestle with fate, right? So it's quite bold a statement, but that's the whole point of yoga. That's the whole philosophy of liberation, to wrestle with fate of the force of the past actions, unconscious action that has been performed, while having faith in something that transcends our faith, something that transcends ourselves, a higher self in some kinds of modern New Age philosophies. So what is inevitable must be grieved with grace. So what cannot be changed, the adhrid karma, that is the unchanging karma, sorry, the drid karma, which is the fixed karma, must be grieved with grace. What is changeable, the adhrid karma, must be changed with effort. And what is fortunate must be accepted with gratitude. So what comes in the wheel of fortune in our favor because of whatever unconscious past that we don't remember, or other reasons, however you want to philosophize or theorize this, you just accept it with gratitude, which is possibly the best attitude we can have, while instead of becoming proud and thinking as if like one deserves, because one has definitely put in efforts, but there's a power to understanding that the capacity to put in that effort is also part of the structure that we are. Now, we come back to this sutra that we also touched upon in the previous episode 1, that sun is the Atman, moon is the Manas. So this is again a very, very important sutra. This would always, whenever we are speaking of self-analysis, psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, and Jyotish, this sutra acts as a bridge. So the sutra is Sarva Atma cha Divanatho Manah Kumud Bandavaha Sattvam Kujo Buddhehe Prokto Buddho Vani Pradayakaha. The sun is Sarvatman, the moon Manas, Mars Sattvam, the consciousness spoken is Mercury giving speech. Sun is Sarva Atman. We had discussed this in episode 1, but what is of import here is that, okay, Atman, we opened up this word in episode 1, is the self, the individual, the consciousness, the awareness that is behind the structure, which is within which all phenomenon arises. The moon is the manas, man, which we use, a very common word in Hindi. Manas is the image producing center. It's the satellite, it's the receptor, it is through which everything is being received, transformed, all attachments, all senses being made through that moon. The moon is the manas, right? So this acts as a bridge. So the word for psychology in Sanskrit is manovigyan, right? That is a science of the mind. Vigyan meaning a science, a branch of gyan, vigyan, a method to gaining knowledge. The science of the manas, manovigyan. But we must also consider the underlying awareness, the will, the attention of the sun, the king, the one behind the horses, the charioteer on the chariot of Krishna, and the attention of the sun and its ongoing dynamics with the deha and the manas, right? So sun and its dynamics with the body, which is the ascendant and the houses, the manas, the moon, and the rest of the grahas. So it is a cumulative work on Atman, Manas, and the other grahas, which also represent a psychophysical aspect of our sense of self. So your physical body and the psychological body, the psychosomatic themes that give structure to our to this body mind system. So the working on that, assessing that, is the goal of Jyotish, Yoga, Ayurveda, and Sankhya. So Sankhya gives us the concrete structure. Ayurveda gives us more tools. It gives us a way to understand nature and work directly with our body. Yoga gives us the psychological tools as well as the spiritual tools, and Jyotish gives us the actual method and a relationship to time, nature, and Prakriti. So Jyotish acts as like Sankhya gives us just the raw material, and applied Sankhya is sort of what Jyotish and Ayurveda is, and Yoga is the method to sort of free oneself from different levels of enslavement of the body-mind complex of the Atman. All of this is a bit delicate topics, so they need to be handled with care, and we'll open them up more and more in every episode. There are many, many, many nuances to them, but they're not super complex or so hard to understand. If you open up, if we talk about it more, if you have any questions, ask in comment section. I'll do my best as much as I can to answer all of your questions. So Patanjali gives us the Ashtang, 8 parts or limbs, to build a proper foundation for the seeker to actually cultivate the skill of meditative awareness, which is a skill, and the gradual experience of yoga. There are a lot of typos. And the gradual experience of yoga. So from those 8 parts, the 8 limbs, that is the Ashtang, we cultivate a skill of meditative awareness, that our sun starts becoming meditative, sun-moon structure, and gradually we start experiencing yoga, union of the sun and moon, and start coming into a sort of a refined state of awareness. But on the way up, one cultivates many other things that makes life fulfilling. And this is where Jyotish helps a lot, because we're talking about spiritual and impractical, seemingly metaphysical ideas, which are always spat and shat on for being too impractical and too much of an armchair sort of philosophy. But what we are doing is Jyotish is giving us a very grounded approach that we can use all of these very high-strung sort of ideas on a very practical and a grounded daily level. Like with Ayurveda, we can just the rhythms, the dinacharya, our relationship to just our day, our body, our food, our jataragni, the agni, the fire in our stomach, the psychological effects of that, how vata pitta, how to keep vata pitta kapha in check, how to understand one's own constitution, and what time we are running in Jyotish, according to which what kind of imbalances are happening, and what we need to cultivate in yoga, and the yamas and niyamas and stuff. So that's what we're going to touch upon. And with Sankhya, to do a rationalistic analysis of the ontology, sort of the psychometaphysics of reality. So it gives us a rational approach. Sankhya is giving us the tools to philosophize properly. Ayurveda is grounding it into the body mind. Yoga is sort of giving us an anchor towards what to aim for, but also some more tools. And Jyotish is giving us a very concrete thing about what you're going through now and how life manifests, what kind of karma is there in one's chart, what kind of actions have one has performed, what kind of consequences are coming, and how to navigate that through effort and grace and stuff. Now, in Ashtang, the 8 limbs, we have Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So out of this, okay, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, Pranayam, Pratyahara, if we keep aside, and even Asana, we just focus on Yam and Niyam. So Yam, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha. And Niyam, Shaucha, Santosh, Tapas, Swadhyaya, which is the key, the analysis or the study of Swa. One of the translations is to analysis of scriptures, which is okay, which is a very good translation also. And it is true, we need to study good texts, good scriptures, and get the right kind of understanding and knowledge, and create intrigue and fascination and curiosity and more questions and more doubts in all of us. We all need that. But Swadhyaya, so the analysis of the study of the Swa. And then we have Ishvara Pranidhana. So they have many different kinds of very deep interpretations and translations. You can get into the etymology and really open these words up, and there's a lot of beautiful philosophy behind all of this. What clicked for me and what's absolutely profound is that one of the niyam is niyam meaning a sort of a important rule, uh, important thing to do is swadhyaya, right? So yam is one of the things that these are like more like restraints, and niyam is more like certain rules to. They're both sort of similar in their meaning and purpose, but niyam has more to do with certain things to keep in mind, right? Things to practice, certain rules to take care of. Yam is more of like restraint, some things to have like the moral sort of ethical code, right? So they both have to do with ethics a lot. These are the ethical aspect of yoga, and they have like their own importance. They're given for a reason. They have like a very deep purpose. They take care of different aspects of the birth chart. If we take care of these things, they take care of the Jyotish of our being and all the things that can go awry in our being. So the analysis or the study of the swa, right? But before this, I want to just make a point that regarding the order of these 8 parts, 8 limbs that are given. So numbers, enumeration, and anything that has to do with taking a stepwise rational approach of any sort of psychometaphysics or ontology or stuff like that in the Eastern esoteric traditions is always deeply intertwined with the Sankhya. And if one studies Sankhya even briefly, the importance of the order and number becomes an important consideration. It becomes very clear that things are ordered a certain way. They are given in a stepwise fashion for a reason. They're not haphazardly just given randomly. Numbers are also an essential and fundamental aspect of Jyotish, even more primary than the names of the signs and rashis are the numbers of the rashis. So that's in a future episode, I definitely want to just open up these 2 lines, what this means. But for now, just understand that numbers, numbering, enumeration, and taking this rational, systematic approach to giving technical instructions has a lot to do with Sankhya, and Yoga Sankhya are very connected to each other. In fact, Sankhya Yoga is considered as one school, and Patanjali's Sankhya is considered a type of a tradition of Sankhya. So there's Ishvara Krishna Sankhya, Samasa Sankhya, and then there is Patanjali Sankhya, there's Sutra Sankhya. So there are different traditions of Sankhya. They agree, disagree with each other, but they all agree on some things. So now out of these 8 parts, it is Yam and Niyam that are mentioned first. So as these act as a basic preparatory work that deals directly with the basic behavioral, habitual and other automatisms of our manas that are to be addressed first to a certain degree. It is then that the work with the physical body, Annamaya Kosh, and other various pranas comes into pictures. It is after this that, let's say, asan, pranayam, pratyahara has been mentioned. So first basic, like just having a good behavior, good attitude, a good basic decency in life as a student, just being a decent person, which many of us, including me, sometimes forget, right? So we just being, just cleanliness of mind, let's say shocha, santosha, contentment, being at ease to whatever degree possible. Austerity, disciplined use of energy, you see, surrender to a higher power, dedication to the divine, even having, being in resistance to that acts as a little bit of a, though this can open up gradually in stages for the practitioner, it doesn't need to come initially. Initially, that's my approach is swadhyaya. Just work with facts and let Jyotish do its thing. And gradually, Ishvara Pranidhana, as things become more and more obvious to us, all of these other attitudes also would come in all of us. So my point here was that in Yama and Niyama are given first, and it is this that works directly with manas to create a better human being to whatever degree possible. And we will now briefly open up the most important niyama, which directly allows us to utilize Jyotish for its original purpose, in my opinion. This is Swadhyaya. So the topic of the video is Jyotish as a tool for psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic tool, which is Swadhyaya in my opinion. Swadhyaya is a compound Sanskrit word composed of Swa plus Adhyaya. Adhyaya means a lesson, lecture, chapter, or reading. Swa means own, one's own self, or the human soul, or however you want to say it. Therefore, Swadhyaya literally means one's own reading, one's own lesson, lessons about oneself, assessment of the self. Swadhyaya is also a compound Sanskrit word composed of Swa, Adhyaya. So this was Swa and Adhyaya, but Swa and Dhyaya. Dhyaya means meditating on. So meditating on the self. The root of Adhyaya and Dhyaya is Dhyay, which means Dhyay, which means meditate, contemplate, think of. This is from where we get Dhyan. The root is very important. Dhyaya, dharana, dharma, dhyan, dha is to hold something, to uphold something. Dhrid, adhrid, dha, to fixed, non-fixed. The term Swadhyaya therefore also connotes contemplation, meditation, reflection on oneself, and simply to study of one's own self. So my point is, the Swa in the Atman, the Jyoti of Jyotish, which we opened up in episode 1, the center around which the whole metaphysics of the psychostructure of our experience, light, Jyoti, sun, revolves around. So Swa is that thing. So Swadhyaya is very much concerned with what Jyotish must be concerned with. Now, Jyotish must be used for the analysis of the Swa on every level of analysis. And it can do this by a very interesting and precise manner. I would even go as far as to say that the Swadharma, which is often quoted in Bhagavad Gita, that is, it is better to perform your Swadharma than to perform the dharma of another person, also has a lot of connotations of what one's own structure of being is. That is, what's one's own Jyotish. What is the Swa structure of a person, and analysis of that and working with that to the best of one's capacity is better to work with another person and cave into, which we can, interestingly enough. That's why that point has been made in Bhagavad Gita, and we see it as a self-evident fact, even if we don't want to agree with Bhagavad Gita, if some of us are more in resistance to that, which is completely okay. Even that has to be opened up properly. In my opinion, if we practice Swadhyaya via Jyotish, we can actually understand our design, the structure of our being, the vasanas and sanskaras that we are dealing with in this ongoing filtered experience of reality. This can allow us a whole new level of psychological awareness of our own habits, attitudes. It can help us in coming to terms with our unconscious habits, which can be like rage, sorrow, lust, greed, egoity, shame, or anything else due to plausible, implausible reasons. This is first the analysis happens. Through Jyotish, it lays out the map, it lays out the structure. Jyotish lays out a very clear path regarding how to figure this out. We can then discern what is going on, what is the ongoing stuff that is coming up in the psyche, and enter into an analysis which can help us look at ourselves with more compassion and understand our relationship to nature. Focus on that which is really us within the whole structure, as we can become so identified and confused by these proclivities of vasanas and samskaras, these genetic proclivities, these stuff that we're carrying in our unconscious from the previous states of being, let's call it. And gradually through the other 8 pieces, we piece ourselves together into a unified whole. Through the other 8 parts of Ashtang, we piece ourselves together into a unified whole, an integrated Swa. We integrate the Swa, a whole indivisible individual is born. This is what they call self-realization. That you realize yourself as the center within which all phenomenon is occurring, and you're not identified with the phenomenon. You can remain present with the phenomenon. You can engage with the phenomenon. You can observe the phenomenon from a distance, but you never get caught up to the point that you lose yourself and you become helpless. You sort of lose ourselves in the churning of time. This is said to be the beginning of the true spiritual journey according to some great masters. The goal is not just yoga, but also Sankhya and all other systems that speak of suffering, its nature, and how to overcome it, ask us to begin with the analysis of this ongoing sense of self, the mind. In Buddhism, they can use different words for it, but they then eventually just fundamentally want to first deal with the psychology of the person through assessment of different habits. It's psychophysical dynamics. Even the body is considered, and for the physical dynamics, Ayurveda comes into place very beautifully. Relationship with nature, again, and the meaning and import of various levels of freedom and liberation, which can be physical freedom, which can be psychological freedom, which can be different ways of freeing ourselves from these different tie-downs. The self is currently an aggregate of pure awareness that is imbued in the colors of the phenomenon of this world and identified with it. We have to extract it back, focus it. We must assess the structure and the phenomenon that is imbued by the self, and this making it the self in its outwardly extended totality. What I meant to say, I think, was that it's extending outwardly, the attention is flowing outwardly, and through this understanding we could hope to reverse engineer this process, bring the attention, gather it back, withdraw the sensory current back into the stillness, and begin our journey inward and upward. There are many stages. It is a joyful process. I'm barely a beginner. I'm just barely a student. I'm just walking with you. Now, to do this, we need not go to the mountains and find a cave, though one can, if that's what they need to do or believe in. But what I found to be true is that one must begin with the bare bones basic. This is start with the lagna, ascendant, that is the body. Start with taking simple care of the body, and then also the mind, just treating yourself right, treating people right, dealing with past traumas, understanding the basics of Jyotish, learning a little bit about Sankhya. We must start with the obvious that will lead us into the subtle. The subtle then becomes obvious, and something even subtler would appear. So what's subtle to us now would become more obvious and gross, and then something even subtler will appear. And we just must start with the assessment, the analysis of some basic things in our chart. So a lot of us are, let's say, someone in their birth chart have something to do with fire element, let's say. Agni is confused. Something is going on different parts of their mind or the body. Now, just through their diet, they can have a lot of relief. Certain herbs diet, certain kriyas, certain pranayama, and talk therapy, analysis, assessment, understanding what happened, what's happening, how this stuff works. It helps. It has helped many people, and it will help. Now, Jyotish is compatible with all philosophies of the psyche. And the concepts and strategies therein, so any concepts and strategies that are related, that are given in different philosophies of the psyche, which are different kinds of therapeutic modalities in the world of psychology. This includes cognitive behavior therapy, gestalt therapy, transactional analysis, various psychoanalytic models given by Carl Jung, Jacques Lacan, Freud, different family systems, existential therapies. There's to be a comma between like family systems, ACT, which is commitment therapy, action-oriented therapies, anything else that one can come up with. Anything. Jyotish gives us a depth. It adds a new layer, and we can use those concepts to work with the manas, to work with the mind, to work with the mon. They're all useful, can be pursued while holding the actual depth perspective of Jyotish, studying the unconscious that we carry. The actual method for discerning the structure of the unconscious in nature is Jyotish. In fact, what I've found so far is that the most of these work better when assisted by each other. So even Jyotish works better when assisted by a proper trauma-informed approach, a proper someone who's informed in various psychoanalytic theories, even just one, if not various, because it's a lot of work. And psychoanalysis and therapeutic work works much better with Jyotish. So I hope to speak more and more about this. This has been a key area of my research. I've done a lot of work around this over the past few years. So I want to bring that out. I want to share it. I want to make it more useful. Please tell me how I can add more value and give more resources and make this more and more useful. I just wanted to open up this dialogue. So that's the whole point of this episode. So awareness of the solar or Swa system. Once the awareness of Swa, Jyoti, Surya, solar, Purusha, Purush, the word used in Sankhya system, begins to emerge and becomes more evident through observation and practice, the practitioner begins to become more aware of their proclivities, their biases, which we become, me too, even though I do this work, I go blind to my own proclivities quite often, but it helps to catch yourself doing something and be like, oh, that's there, that pattern is coming up and I need to act differently. Overcome that, override that pattern, practice, assist it, understand it, love it, care for it. And how certain circuitry seems to function in habitual patterns and other unconscious automations. So now one can practice the rest of the yamas and niyamas depending on what one is seeking to overcome and contemplate. Right? So if someone is dealing with being impure in thought, action, word, deed, they can work on shocha. That's the first niyama. Or santosha. If someone feels discontented, it's like, wow, that's something that was seen as a goal in life, right? And yoga is like, these are the basics. They say if you want to get to performing asanas, pranayama, and dharana, dhyana, samadhi and stuff properly, pratyahara, you need to have some level of contentment. Though those would help you, so they all are interlocked. It's that when you do a little bit of concentration practices and you do asana and pranayama, it'll help you find more contentment and peacefulness. But having, through Jyotish, through self-assessment, through psychoanalysis, through understanding Sankhya, Yoga, Jyotish and Ayurveda, you'd also get a more contented feeling of like understanding how nature is, what's my place in this world, how reality works, how what purpose is, what meaning is. It makes us more thoughtful. It makes us ask more questions. It creates more doubts. We seek deeper. We have more answers. We create more doubts. It makes us seek deeper, and we go deeper and deeper into the process. To bring the unconscious structure of one's being is one part of this ontological task. This task in and of itself requires a lot of depth analysis and coming to terms with so much stuff within ourselves. And there's a lot of psychological work. One of the quotes of Paramahansa Yogananda is, and I'm paraphrasing it, is that most of the battle is a psychological one. The spiritual battle, once the psychological battle is won, the spiritual battle is won very quickly, is what he said. So a lot of our battle is manasik. A lot of the rogas, that is diseases, happen in the manas. It's what we're imagining to be true. All the, how they say, magnifying or catastrophizing, all of these things happen in manas and its relationship to different grahas and the structure. So there is then also cultivating ourselves to become better human beings and seeing the value in doing so. The resistance is often that one is already a better human being, or one has been wronged, and this requires a prolonged therapeutic approach is required. There's a lot of analysis and therapy required there, healing work required for those wounds, and all of us are going through our own stages. We're all in this journey together in different stages. There is first and foremost a prolonged phase of observing one's behaviors, studying one's own birth chart and working with one's own psyche. This is one step, whether you're a practitioner, student, or have any other kind of relationship with astrology, especially Jyotish. Anyone who tells you otherwise does not know what they're talking about. Anyone who tells you that no, you're not supposed to observe your own behavior, study your own chart, or work with your own psyche, and just see things first outside of yourself. No, we have to first look more deeply within. And not to get over-consumed by self and its things, but to come to terms with certain things and to understand the nature and dynamics, and then when we act in the world, we know where we stand and how we can make certain shifts and changes. We have more compassion for ourselves and others also, because if I have a structure, if I have a certain psyche, then others also have a design. They also have certain proclivities, and it helps. It has definitely helped me. So how we channelize our proclivities is in the best possible manner, given the circumstances, and the overall design is quite a fruitful work. Slowly and steadily, I always say this. One step at a time, slowly and steadily. Whichever graha is weak must be cultivated through practice. This is to be done by paying attention of the sun and intention of the moon to the things of that graha on every level of analysis, that is psychological and physiological, and if there are other levels you can think of. The grahas or the parts of the birth chart that work must help those that do not work. So if you have a very good Jupiter, Venus, or if you have Mercury, it's very good. You have a very good sense of humor and capacity to be playful and stuff, which is the mercurial themes. They would help other parts. Mercury also deals with concepts really well. So we overuse our planets which are strong. The grahas, sorry, not planets, grahas. So we overuse the grahas which work in our favor, and then we want to cultivate and help and heal the parts that are more unconscious and things where we falter. But we need to understand what these things are and how this works. So we need to study and know more about them and see how our subjectively how they work for us. Because Mars is objectively Mars, and then subjectively it can have a certain dynamic for us in a certain area of life. So understanding the ongoing time cycles, the transits, one's own individual structure is immensely fruitful. At least it has been for me and many of my clients over the past 10 years. Jyotish can and must be used as a tool, psychoanalytic tool. The capacity to therapize would depend on the skill of the analyst, as well as the relationship of the analyst and the analysand. The client and the astrologer, their relationship would decide how therapeutic the whole system becomes and how skillful, compassionate, understanding that the analyst is. A sincere astrologer who has actually studied astrology and knows what's going on, the problem should be able to be resolved through a psychoanalytic help us be more illuminated about the structure. So on an analytic perspective, there is illumination of the structure. Mercury is an assessment of the self, because I did not take care of is a perfect, very beautiful psychoanalytic tool that is Jyotish. Not the right attitude. It's not the right way to understand astrology, not the right way to have that's not the right relationship with astrology. What I would recommend is to assess your psyche, the structure of yourself, and see what time you're in, why you're going through what you're going through, how to deal with it, coming to terms with things, making an effort where you can make an effort, and accepting what's good with gratitude and make it flourish even more. So thank you so much. This is just an opening of a very, very long conversation. Please like and subscribe and click on the bell notification so that you get notified every time I upload a new episode. Apologies if I went too fast in this video. I wanted to cover a lot and I didn't want to make the video extremely long, even though it's pretty long right now. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.